this is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? It is September 1st, and I thought I would do a wrap-up of my August, the books I completed in August. September 1st is, I'm glad August is behind us, because August is really a time when there's a lot of change for me. And, you know, shifting back to the school year and watching my grandkids again and that sort of thing. But September 1st is also a great day because it's the beginning of the season of creation, which is something that started with the Orthodox Church like many years ago, I think. And then maybe back in the 70s or 80s. And then it became a season. At first it was just September 1st, but then they extended it. And then the World Council of Churches adopted it. And then in 2015, Pope Francis, when he issued his encyclical Laudato Si, or Care for Our Common Home, he incorporated it into the Catholic calendar. Now, it's not an official liturgical season like Advent or Lent, but it is something that is encouraged to be, acknowledged. So, and it goes September 1st to October 4th. October 4th is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, which he's kind of the patron saint of nature or whatever. And so it's a good time. It's a busy time for me because I'm in my Care for Our Common Home ministry, and so we do stuff during the season. This time is kind of low-key. We're going to read Laudato Si, which I've already read 3 times, so I'm going to participate, but I'm just going to glance over. Well, I have a really heavily highlighted copy, so I'm just going to glance through that before I get on the little Zoom group. And we always have the blessing of the animals on October 4th, and we're, having prayers said for creation. It's just about deepening your connection to creation and seeing it as a gift and something that we're supposed to ideally be good stewards of. So it's not really that political, though it can get political, of course. But it's really almost like it can also be an individual thing. Like, how do you relate? Are you truly grateful for creation that allows you to live? And anyway, it's a good season, but it tends to be busier. So yeah, it's September. So let me tell you what I read in August. So on August 3rd, I finished Babe Ruth, His Life and Legend. I did not write the author's name down. That was on a Kindle read. I really enjoyed it. I think I talked about it, but I didn't really review it. I can't remember. And then I read, on August 6th, I had finished Cornelius, Rabbit of Tang, those children's books that my father's cousin wrote back in the 1940s. That was delightful. And then I finished The Letters of Vincent van Gogh on August 12th, and that was a buddy read with Linda of Elder Talk and Deirdre of Eden Restored. That took me 3.5 months to read about. It took a while, but it was really, truly a good, worthwhile read. But yesterday I finished 3 books. So I finished the Aeneid. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to review this now because I think my son is going to come over and we're going to make a video about this. So I'm not going to talk about this yet. And then I finished this collection of Agatha Christie's The Harlequin tea set, which I've been reading very slowly all through the month. And I will say the last story, The Harlequin tea set, I thought was really good, and it was one of her later written ones. Some of them were as early as the 1920s, which I've read her autobiography, and I don't remember her writing stories for magazines that early. So obviously I'm not remembering it clearly because she did. But then you can almost see her writing getting better and better. But I enjoyed this. There was only one Poirot. The others some were mysteries, but most of them were just kind of spooky. So yeah, it was. I enjoyed that. I enjoy Agatha Christie always. Sometimes she's good, sometimes she's really great. That was a really pleasant read for me. And then last night I finished Secret Water. I think I said Sweet Water in a previous video, by Arthur Ransom. And this was, so he wrote this whole series of books, and it features mostly the Walker children, they're John, Susan, Titty, unfortunate name, and Roger, and then Bridget. So they have a little baby sister back in the first or second book, and she's finally old enough to join them on their adventures. There's a plane going over. So this had some really interesting aspects about it. It's always about the kids going off on their own and exploring, being explorers. Some of them I think are really, really excellent. This one was good, but there was something, the setting, I did not like the setting. I never felt comfortable. They're on these marshy, muddy islands that are like, when the tide comes in, they're islands, and then when the tide goes out, there's these mud flats that connect the pieces of land. And the kids are always getting muddy, and you know, it's very sanitized, right? So he's never talking about the bugs or snakes or anything like that. But it just sounded awful to me. I really don't like mud. And they were constantly getting mud, and of course they can't take showers. They just go and wash off in a pond. Like, they must have been... And just here in Virginia, you would just be covered with mosquito bites, and there would be snakes, and there would be ticks, and I mean, gnats would just cloud around you. I mean, it would be awful to be doing what they're doing. But one thing that was really interesting was the way they were, so they get marooned, in quotes, on an island by their parents, and they have to camp there until their parents come back to pick them up. And they're going to, the dad gives them a mission that they have to map the territory. So they're really into mapping it. And that was really an interesting aspect, I thought. So, like, you see the map at the beginning that their father gives them, the outline. And then at the very end, spoiler, they actually fill it in. Let me see if I can find the last map. And in the meantime, they meet these other children who are very like them. They call themselves the Eels, and you know, they're playing and exploring the area. What was I going to say? Yeah, so this to me felt a little bit formulaic, though. A couple of them, I mean, he wrote so many, and they all have the same premise. The same children, they're out doing this fun stuff that he recalled doing as a child when he was growing up. His parents would let him and his siblings go off and camp and stuff during the holidays. And so that's sort of always the premise somehow, but he's very clever in giving them different twists and different kind of focuses. But this one felt a little bit formulaic. Also, I think like he had too many kids in here, because you hardly hear from Peggy, the character Peggy, at all. Sometimes I'd forget that she was there. I'd be like, where's Peggy? And he introduces these new characters, the Eels, Daisy, and then the two boys are Dum and Dee, which is weird because in other books, there's two other kids that sometimes play with the Walker children, and they're called the Dees. And I forget I should have looked up their names. But anyway, it's a girl and a boy. And the boy's like really nerdy scientist type, so they're always getting into certain things like astronomy or bird watching. But they didn't really have characters. He really didn't flesh them out. So I feel like he almost had too many kids. And why didn't he just bring the D's back, the original D's, instead of introducing Dum and Dee? Like, literally, the guy's name was D-E-E. I don't know. So to me, it was one of the weaker ones. Still highly enjoyable. Like, he's such a good writer, and he really, they're just so innocent, and you just love the character of the kids. They're kids, and yet at the same time, they're quite confident, and they love a good challenge, and they love sailing and exploring. And so it's just delightful. It's really a delightful series. So I'm not sure what the next one is that I'm supposed to read. And I kept looking up this area of England. just to see. And they always give really interesting names, like the Red Sea, Amazon Creek, Secret Water. Yeah. Anyway, it was enjoyable. I'm glad I read it, and it was like first published in 1939. All right. Anyway, I'm looking to see. I think the next one that I should read. So I've already read these other ones: Swallows in Amazon, Swallowdale, Peter Duck, Coop Club, which I didn't care for as much as the others. Kind of like this one, Pigeon Post. We Didn't Mean to Go to Sea. That was really nail-biting. Winter Holiday, which I read earlier. I think the next one I'm supposed to read is The Big Six. So I have to get that. I don't own it. So I'm trying to collect the whole series that is published by Godine. I'm trying to collect all of this whole set. Anyway, it was enjoyable. I'm glad that I finished it. It's a typically, I try to read one or two every summer. And so this was a summer read. It was good for the summer. It was good to read it during the summer. And then that's about it. I'm still reading other things. Another book they haven't really talked about, I think I mentioned it when I vlogged, is I have been also reading this book, Eat to Beat Your Diet by Dr. William Lee. And I have just poured through this one. I'm going through and just looking at, I did that before. I looked at recipes, and I've just been going through and taking notes and stuff. So this has really been occupying a lot of my mental energy during the month of August. So that's another one. Okay, and then this is Labor Day weekend also. And so I'm planning to try to knock out Richard III. I got this out of the library this weekend. So today's Sunday and Monday. I'm trying to get as much of that read as possible. Oh, one thing I didn't finish yet and I need to do is I didn't quite finish part 3 of The Lord. I've got one more chapter to read, Destiny and Decision. And then I'll be ready for September, for the September part 4 I have to start. So I do want to read this today, and I want to work on this, and then I'm supposed to start the Great Bridge, which I hope to do in a couple of days, but I really want to read my next Miss Marple. So the first 3, I got the whole set of Miss Marple, this edition, for Christmas. I was going to start reading them. I read the first 3. It turns out, I knew I'd read the first 2, but it turns out I had also read the third one in the series. And this was the next one. It was just sitting on my shelf. I kept thinking, I got to get to the next Agatha Christie. And then I just happened to see, I think it was Talia Nerds Out talked about how this was her favorite, I think. And then Miranda Mills talked about how this is a great book for autumn and that she really loved this book too. So I thought, this is calling my name. So I'm reading this. I'm putting off The Great Bridge. I can start that in a few days. But I'm reading this right now. I started that last night. And I also started the Secret Life of, what's the word I want? Sunflowers. Yeah. Which, I don't know. It's very modern. I'm really picky. I don't like a lot of modern writing styles. And it feels a little bit amateur. But I think it might still be interesting, so I'm going to keep reading it. So I don't think it's going to be a hard read. And maybe once we got, the premise is that this woman is, she's visiting her grandmother who's in a nursing home. She lives in LA and she runs an art auction house. And she's back in New York visiting her grandmother, and her mother is living in, she has a lot of issues with her mother, is living in Florida. They're both older now. And she really loves her grandmother, and her grandmother has sold her house, and she wants the granddaughter to clean it out, and she gives her some letters and a diary that she had, and so she's looking forward to reading her grandmother's diary. She's like, oh, this is cool. But it turns out it's not her grandmother's diary, it's the diary of Johanna Van Gogh. And somehow it's written in English? How does that happen? And it's, like, right away, it's not written in an old-fashioned way. It's written in too casual a way. so it doesn't seem like it was actually written back in that time period. But still, I think we'll find out interesting facts about Johanna Van Gogh, or she went by the name Jo. So I think it could be interesting. We'll see. So, all right, well, that's it. I hope you have a wonderful Labor Day weekend if you are in the USA. I hope you have a wonderful September, and happy reading and happy season of creation.